Good day, graphics students. Welcome to this tutorial on making a vector graphic for a sticker design. So first thing we're going to do is open up Illustrator and create a new document. Now our rolls of vinyl are 15 inches, but the cutting area is 13 inches. So let's make a document that's 13 inches wide by 13 inches high. Make sure you check your units. Say create. Now let's start off by making a design just with the text tool. Okay, so you may be wanting to, I don't know, do something with your name. Okay, so let's say your name is Jimmy. All right, you're going to want to spend some time looking at your fonts. So you can go to Window, Type Character, open up the fonts here, and choose something. Now you don't want to choose a font that has too many little shapes. Like this one probably wouldn't be a good choice. Some of these smaller pieces here would be difficult to weed around. Okay, remember it's easier to weed a little hole, like a little negative space hole. That can be quite small, but if your piece itself, if the positive shape is very small, it wants to lift off when you're weeding it. So although we might like this, we're probably going to choose something else. So let's say we like this one. Okay. Now the plotter will not see this. Okay. It doesn't have the paths. So there's a couple different ways to do this. One way is to go to Object, Expand. Okay. And when we click OK, if I use the direct selection tool and zoom in here, you'll be able to see these blue outlines. These are the paths. That's what the cutter can see and will cut. Okay. Any paths that are here will be cut by the machine. All right. The other method, which is a little bit easier, if you have your live text here, you just right-click on it and then click on Create Outlines. Okay, same thing. The cutter will now be able to see this. Now, you always want to size your design, make it the size that you want it to be. So my little Properties tab here has Transform with width and height. So I can specify a width here. So say I want it to be 8 inches, I can just click on that and it'll resize it. Because this is linked, it's not going to stretch it, it'll retain the proportions. Okay, so that's what you want. That's done. Now, say I'm planning to make this blue, I'll usually make it the color that I want it to be. The exception is if I'm planning to use white vinyl, I would make it gray, because as you'll be able to see here, if I make it white, it's invisible. So that's just not great. So I'd usually just make it a little bit gray just so I can see it. Okay, so that's how you make a text design. Now let's make a graphic design based on a raster image. So I did a search on Broncos logos here. Now the first two results are pretty good. This one's 900 by 507. You can get a decent trace out of that. But the next one is 3840 by 2160. Always choose the highest res that you can find. If the resolution isn't very good, you're not going to get a good trace out of it. So I'll paste this one in here, nice and big. That's what we want. Okay, I'll just zoom out a bit. Okay, so let's trace it. So we're going to use the Image Trace menu. So we go up to Window, Image Trace. Okay, there is an Image Trace option up here at the top, but it doesn't give us many options, so do not use this one. Always open up the separate Image Trace menu. Okay, now you always want to start at the presets. Okay, so at the top of the Image Trace menu here, we have our presets. So this has 3 colors, so let's use the 3-color preset. If there were 4 colors, I could choose the 3-color preset and then just change the number of colors here. Okay, this is a very high-res image, so it's taking a second here to trace. Now, you can adjust the trace if you go into advanced. Adding paths will generally give you a little more detail. Adding corners can sometimes help. Notice every time we make a change, it wants to retrace. Reducing the noise also often is a way to improve your trace quality. Okay, so every time we make any change, it retraces. Sometimes it takes quite a while depending on the size of your raster image. Okay, so now that this is traced, it is a vector, but it still doesn't have those paths. Okay, so we have to go up to Object, Expand, and say OK, and now it has the paths. Okay, now the plotter can see this. Now, I don't want to have this white background, okay? Any shapes that are here, the plotter will want to cut. Now if I grab this design with my selection tool, you'll notice everything is grouped. Okay, it's all stuck together. If I want to ignore the grouping, that's what the direct selection is for. It's one of the reasons we have that tool. So that allows me to grab this shape. So you see this was actually a shape. So it would actually cut this path here. Okay, but then it would also cut the path around the horse. So you'd have two cut lines on top of each other, and that wouldn't work very well. Okay, so we want to remove our background. All right. Now let's say I want to select the blue part. Use my direct selection, so I've just grabbed that blue, but oh, notice there's the inside of the ear, nose, mouth. So a quick way to grab those, I could shift click and click on all these different shapes, or I could go to select same fill color. So I have the blue selected, so it'll grab all the different shapes that have that same color of blue. So now all my blue is selected. Okay, so that's a much easier way to grab a bunch of different shapes. Okay, so that's great. But notice, if I go back to my selection tool, everything is still grouped. Okay, so sometimes I want to ungroup things. So to do that, I go to the same place where I expanded, Object, and then choose Ungroup. Now clicking on that once doesn't do the trick. We got to do it multiple times. Okay, the shortcut is Shift-Command-G, but you can also just go Object Group until it's grayed out. Now everything is ungrouped. But this means every shape is now ungrouped to every other shape. So notice this is not grouped. So what I'll do now is select all my blue parts, just draw a box with my selection tool, just touching every shape, and then Object Group, and now now that's all grouped. Okay, and I'll do the same thing with this other part. Just select everything here, and then Object Group. Shortcut Command G. All right, so now I have my two separate designs here. Okay, so that's pretty cool actually. But this one, notice there's negative space. There's these holes in the design. So this only works if it's on a light colored background. So just be aware of that. This one is all positive shapes, okay? But it's multiple colors. So let's change the colors. If we go to our toolbar here, at the bottom we have our fill color. That's the inside color. So if I double click on that, I'll just select white, and now everything is white. Okay, so that's great. Now, I do notice something with the eye here. There's a cut line here where I don't want it. Remember, any line will be cut. So I want these to be joined together. I don't want them to be separate. So what I can do is select that and then use the Pathfinder, and go Window Pathfinder, and use the Unite tool here. Okay, and that'll just merge any shapes that are touching each other. Okay, there's still a little cut line here, so I could use my direct selection. Maybe just grab that anchor point and delete that. There we go. So now that's all one shape. So sometimes you'll do some editing to your shapes. If you use the direct selection, you can grab individual anchor points and select them. These little handles are called Bezier handles. You can change the characteristics of the curve like that. The pen tool, you can add or delete anchor points. The pencil tool, you can redraw paths. Okay, there's actually even more, many different tools for modifying your vector shapes. So if you're encountering some issue and you need to alter a shape, I can help you, walk you through that and help you to do that. All right, so I have my shape here. I'm just going to make it a little bit gray so I can see it on the white background, and then I'm going to size it. So remember, we have our transform options here. Make sure I have them linked, and then I can plug in my width. So maybe I want this to be 6 inches wide. Bam. Then I can move that over here. I'll grab my other horse. Maybe I'm going to do both of them. Maybe the width of this one I want it to be a bit bigger. I'll do 8 inch. Right? Now, if you're doing this for a car window, dark and light both seem to work pretty well. So it's just a matter of preference. Colors, of course, are determined by the vinyl that we have. So if you want to know what colors, just go over to the shelf there and see what's available. Okay. So now I'm done. I have my designs completed. I have to save it. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and just save this as a, I'll call this demo horse. And I'll just save this on the desktop. Save. Okay. And now, if I go to the desktop, go to List View, there it is, Demo Horse. So this is the file that I would copy onto my USB. I can just drag and drop it on there and take it over to the cutting computer. All right, Thanks for your attention. Good luck.